Good evening and welcome to episode 39 of Legal Tech Live. I am Nick Rishwain here with my co-host,
Ivan Rakeland,
who goes off screen as soon as he...
It's so dramatic. Ivan Rakeland. Let me say that again.
Yeah, he is a tinkerer. He's always tinkering. And
I'm trying to make it a better scenery here.
Better scenery? Okay, well,
Better.
Keep working on that. With us tonight, we have Victor Bornstein and Serge Zenin. These are founders of Intrellit. Intrellit uses two types of artificial intelligence, deep learning and natural language processing, to tackle medical errors, the third leading cause of death in the United States. Their first use case is in the medical malpractice litigation industry, where they offer an eDiscovery platform powered by AI and a vastly improved OCR tool optimized for medical terminology, which expedites the process of reviewing medical records. With that, Victor and Serge, welcome. I am going to go ahead and move this over to Facebook Live for the legal tech community. It's a small community. But I do want to let's get some backgrounds from both of you while I do that. Victor, can you give us a little background on you and your experience, and then Serge the same?
Sure. And first of all, thanks so much for having us in the program. And I have to give a shout out for Sujesh, who connected us with you. Sujesh from Kinami.
Nice.
But yes, my background is I used to work at Mount Sinai Hospital in the legal tech and the health tech area. So basically, I was working developing technologies for the hospital system, more on the healthcare side. And before that, I was part of the accelerator in Houston called TMCX. And before that, a venture capital fellow at Digitalis Ventures. So I have my PhD from Mount Sinai. And I guess before we jump into the product, maybe...
So hi, everyone. My name is Serge. And I just wanted to thank both of you guys, Nick and Ivan. We've watched some of your episodes and really enjoyed it. So it's really an honor to be here tonight. And just wanted to thank you for what you guys do out there.
Before you continue, I got to say, this is the best background I think we've had on a single episode.
We tried.
Is that the Empire State Building?
Yeah, we chose it for you guys. We don't know why it's changing colors today, because they make it themes, but I don't know. But yeah, maybe we can research later.
I love it.
It is. Ivan, you want to hear the total Central Valley Californian about it? I had to ask them what city they were in, because I wasn't sure, because there's big buildings, and it's like, oh, okay, big buildings in a big city. So amateur hour. Yeah, it's like, it looks familiar. I've seen it in movies before, but
yes, today the Empire State Building is blue and white. I'm not sure why.
I think that's the one that you have like a lot of movies. You have like, what's the name of the monkey climbing the
King Kong movie,
something like that. You have something like that build. I don't know.
So yes,
real quick. So Nick, you probably remember it from all of Jeff Goldberg's Periscopes back in the day.
I do remember that from back in the day. It's been a while. Serge, tell us about yourself.
Yes, so I am a medical malpractice defense attorney. I've been doing this kind of work for the past 7 years. So I was initially a plaintiff's attorney for about 2 years. And for the past 5 years, I've been working as a medical malpractice defense attorney. And a lot of my time I spend reviewing medical records, and I help doctors and other medical staff when they get sued in medical malpractice lawsuits. So I look at the records and I work with them to help figure out what happened in the lawsuit and see how we can help. And I've been doing that for a while. And
how did the two of you come together and create Intrellit?
Yeah, so basically, I was working at Mount Sinai Hospital looking for hospital needs, and honestly, any hospital you look into, you see a laundry list of how many things you can improve on. And one of them was around the medical mistakes, the mistakes that doctors make. Mm-hmm. And it's a big issue, as you mentioned, is the third leading cause of death in the U.S. So it's something that really deserves attention. And I wanted to focus a lot on this, but I realized that if you want to approach it from directly the healthcare side, it's very difficult, because especially if you're using machine learning, because the data set has to be very longitudinal. You have to have health records from different hospitals, has to be labeled for medical malpractice. It has to, there's several difficulties. So for me, it seemed that the best go-to-market strategy was in medical malpractice. Unfortunately, I did not know anything about it. I just, I read it, so it makes a lot of sense. I don't know anything about it. So we started talking to a lot of people, maybe 50 or a little bit more people. And a friend connected me to Serge, who was looking basically from the same problems in a different angle.
So as a medical malpractice defense attorney, I saw a lot of the same problems with regard to medical errors, only I saw them from a litigation perspective. So as a medical malpractice attorney, a lot of the time we're reading thousands of pages of medical records and we're sifting through voluminous documents. So a lot of the time in a case, you'll have a record that's a PDF file that could be 10 or 15,000 pages long, sometimes more. And as an attorney, you have to go through every single one of those pages, figure out what happened, figure out what the relevant dates are, figure out what the relevant medical conditions are. And the problem is that a lot of the time the records that you receive are poorly scanned in, you can't search them. The records, the dates are all over the place, they're mismatched. A lot of the time they come from different facilities that have different formats, and it's really hard to figure out what's going on. So a lot of our times in discovery, maybe 35% of our day is spent trying to make sense of these records. And believe it or not, but there is no solution for making that process easier. And so I saw that as a major pain point in the industry. And so when Victor reached out to me and started talking to me about some of the issues that he's seen from the medical error side, we right away realized that there's an amazing opportunity here. And so Intrellit was born out of that frustration from both of our perspectives.
Yeah, I should say that we have a third co-founder too, who is the technical person, Serge Zenin, and he has an amazing background. He's been working in deep learning for years and years, and he was a Google developer expert. He worked at Google.
What's his last name? Alexander what?
Zaharchuk.
Oh, Zaharchuk? Okay.
Yeah, he has Ukrainian background. So he's the one doing all the coding right now for us.
Yeah, and he used to work at Google, and he's a Google developer, and he trains people how to use deep learning and machine learning algorithms. And he's advised a lot of startups, and he's really an excellent co-founder. And so we're very delighted that he's the most recent member who joined our team, and now we feel like we're able to make the algorithm that will make the big difference.
Nice.
Yeah.
So on a personal note, which I don't normally do, but in this instance with the names, are you guys from Ukraine or?
We're from different places.
Yeah. I was born in Moscow, from Russia. Yeah.
Okay.
And I grew up in Brazil, but my family's from all over. I'm 62.5% German.
Would you say do Brasil?
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's Москвы. Очень приятно. Okay.
Очень приятно.
So you speak, how many languages do you speak?
A few.
He speaks a few. He speaks a few, and then there's just the hick over here in agricultural county, California.
Hey, you're the legal mind heavy hitter. I have the vast, superficial knowledge of quite a few industries.
Yeah. But I do want to get into, so you guys have sort of like three pillars of your expertise. You've got healthcare, you've got the legal medical malpractice, and you've got your machine learning, deep learning guy. And so discovery, Serge can tell us this, but discovery, let's assume, what is it, like 95% of cases settle before trial being usually the most expensive part of a lawsuit, but vast majority of them are settling before that. So the most expensive part of the lawsuit before it settles is your discovery. Is that about right, Serge?
That's exactly right. I would say that maybe 95, maybe 97% of lawsuits will settle, or they'll get dismissed for some other reasons. There'll be some motions to compel and things like that. But I would say, despite the fact that they settle and trials being the most expensive thing, most cases last from 3 to 7 years, maybe longer, and all of it is without a trial. Pre-trial cases that basically have a lot of discovery in them. The whole thing is discovery. And a large segment of that has to do with medical records and reviewing various records from different facilities. And there's also motions that you do and things of that sort. But as you said, and these days, discovery takes up more and more time because there's more and more pages being printed and more documents to review. So the process is becoming overwhelming, and it burns out a lot of attorneys, to be honest with you.
Right, yeah. It's an overwhelming and it's incredibly expensive.
In these days, not only is it incredibly expensive, but a lot of insurance companies that end up footing the bill, they're becoming much more cost sensitive. And so they're saying, you know what, we're not willing to pay these thousands of dollars for the review. We're going to cut the bill. So in the last couple of years, the trend has been to cut a lot of the bills that defense firms charge. And that ends up hurting the bottom line of defense firms. But it's in the mindset of being more efficient. A lot of these insurance carriers feel like that's what they have to do. And because discovery costs are getting out of control.
And there's even some changes that have been happening, like flat fees have been starting to be rolled out a little bit more, which incentivize the defense firms to also be more effective with their time.
And when we started, when Sajesh put us in, from Konami, Sajesh Krishnan from Konami, who was on episode, I think, 35 or 36, he put us in touch, and I immediately saw this. Now, I looked at it because who I serve the majority of in my day-to-day business is plaintiffs and medical malpractice attorneys or commercial litigators. But what I saw was the plaintiff side, where it's all coming out of their pockets up front, when it's all coming out of their bottom line up front. Anything that they could do to make the discovery phase faster, more efficient, and cheaper seems like something they'll be looking at and biting into, which is interesting because I'm seeing it from Serge. You're seeing it the same way from the defense side, and so I guess it really doesn't matter who it is. This could really give them an edge if they can get through the discovery quicker and find. And what do they need to do in discovery? They really need to find the most important documents, right? It's not every not every document's very important.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off what you said with plaintiffs' lawyers, like you mentioned, they don't charge per hour. Their whole goal is to be a lot more efficient. So if they have a tool that can reduce the amount of paperwork that they need to go through, that's all the more reason, because a lot of the time, unlike defense attorneys that bill by the hour, plaintiff lawyers are really incentivized to just evaluate the case quickly and understand what is the most important aspect of it. And being efficient for them makes all the difference, because it means they can take on more cases and get their work done faster.
Right, and more cost efficiently.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us how it works. Essentially, you say it's AI,
meat and potatoes of technology.
Yeah, tell us. And I realize, look, we're all, most of us. Victor's got the healthcare background. The rest of us have the legal backgrounds, and your CTO's not here, so you guys don't have to get too deep into the machine learning if you don't want to. But give us kind of the nuts and bolts, if you could.
Yeah, sure. So basically, what happens is that right now, the way you do the searches, if you're a lawyer and you look into the records, is you do a Boolean search. And you have to type, let's say, headache, or brain cancer, let's say brain cancer. And you have to type either brain or cancer, or either a combination of these two words. You're just going to see exact match. You have a big issue, which is OCR, so optical character recognition, that because you're using scan documents, that if you don't scan them well, you're not going to find the exact match. That's usually a big issue. And even if you can find the exact match, let's say if you, in a malpractice case, the patient had brain cancer and it was a non-diagnosis, the doctor did not diagnose it, you're never going to find that word just because it was never there. And that's the main issue that you're looking to find. So the problem that we're doing, the way we're solving, is that we get each paragraph, let's say we have 15,000 pages. So you get each paragraph on those 15,000 pages of medical records, and you create what we call a paragraph embedding. So you understand the context of the paragraph overall. So let's say if you're talking about HIV, or in this case, let's say headache, because it could be something that could be an indicator for a brain tumor. And it's not something too clear because it doesn't say brain or tumor, just said headache. Or you're talking about family history of cancer, and it happens to be in the brain, but that's not actually relevant to what you're looking for. So those things are all going to be ignored by a common Boolean search. What we do is that we get the paragraph, we understand how close there is to the main search, and we bring it over. So that's the first version of the product. We have it ready. And it's been allowed right now, it's been allowing us to decrease the amount of paperwork by 75%. So hopefully we can expedite this work. Hopefully you can review 4 times as many documents in the same amount of time. And what we're working towards right now is creating a reconstruction of events. So let's say the doctor saw this patient, they created a note that they have a headache, and then in the next time they prescribed or didn't prescribe a test or a diagnosis for this patient. And that's basically done in a series of events. And we get unstructured notes, meaning just handwritten notes or typed notes by physicians. And we reconstruct the events. And what we're working towards right now is matching that against the guidelines for what doctors should do. So if there's a miss, let's say physician did not prescribe a test for cancer that was very obvious in this case, and that was the guideline. So it's easy for either side to realize that there was a mistake, there was something that they shouldn't have done, or if they did, it's easy to defend the doctor.
Mm-hmm. So real quick, let me just interject regarding the handwritten notes. How much would you say of a percentage of a normal practice that you deal with is handwritten versus digitally input data, which is a lot easier, obviously, to search through?
So at this point, our algorithm is not able to handle any handwritten note because it's just too complicated.
Right.
And I would say these days, about 15 to 20% of a medical chart will have handwritten notes. But ever since
that's a lot lower than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree.
And these days, it's actually becoming less and less because of the new laws that require medical records to be digitized. And because of
most states, or are you dealing primarily right now in New York?
I think there's federal law, is there not, Serge? Yeah. There's federal law for electronic health records.
Yeah, it's a federal law, it's a federal mandate, and it's every hospital is required to now have EMR, electronic medical records. And so these days, all the records that we receive are mostly digitized, but there are older records that are 10 or 15 years old that still need to be analyzed, which have a portion that is handwritten. But that problem is phasing out with time, and we're thinking in the next 5 to 10 years it won't be as much of a problem, but it is something that comes up.
Yeah, and to give a number, this year it just came out, I think a month ago, that 96% of the hospitals in the U.S. Now have electronic health record, and the ones who don't, they're usually small clinics that we're not dealing that much with.
Okay. Well, yeah, they can't afford to.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That makes sense. So, and I mean look, we do OCR in the office. Your simple, Adobe OCR options, and I can't imagine how anything could pick up what a doctor's handwriting, right? I mean, many doctors, I haven't had one yet that had such perfect handwriting that it would be able to OCR it in optical character recognition on that and have it work.
Yes, the way we're solving it right now is that we're pulling those notes aside.
Okay.
And this is the bucket of everything we analyzed, and this is the bucket of things the handwritten notes.
Okay.
Pharmacists need to be the engine behind the OCR, the new update to the OCR, because I think pharmacists are probably the only folks that can read most of those handwritings.
Yeah, and despite that, there's about 4,000 deaths a year as a result of pharmacists not prescribing. Yeah,
oh wow.
Yeah,
4,000 people die a year because they've misread the drug or the dosage.
That's a lot of litigation right there.
Exactly, and although we can address all of those problems, and our solution currently it's not able to completely address handwritten notes. We are able to shorten the workflow and make it a lot easier to review the digitized records.
Okay.
And I feel, Victor, did we cut you off as you were trying to describe the next part of what you guys are doing? I felt like there was something.
Yeah, so the other thing that we have right now is the OCR. And as you mentioned, that's a big thing because if you cannot pick up, let's say if you have heart attack and you pick up wrongly, let's say a home attack. Home attack is not what we're looking into. It's a medical malpractice case, it's not a criminal case. So,
right.
So basically what we do is that we have these 3 layers of different algorithms that we use. 1 layer of more heuristic algorithms for OCR and 2 layers of machine learning. It's basically picking up the same way that sometimes your iPhone or your cell phone predicts the next words to come, and there's a likelihood. We use similar softwares just to know what likelihood of that word being, besides the OCR being better itself. So right now we've been decreasing it. Our proof of concept shows that in some databases that Adobe has about 15% error rate, we're getting 0.8. So it's like about 20 times fewer error rate.
Did you say 0.8?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
99.2% accurate.
Yeah.
On the worst
on the worst type of OCR. Because when it's very like a nice document, you pick up 100%. When it's really bad, we're picking up like about 0.8.
Nice.
So
I mean, not picking up.
I'm stuck on like what is the search that an attorney's going to have to do here? Are they looking for anything that might be like I think a lot of the cancers have the OMA ending, right? Glioblastoma or mesothelioma. I think I just made the first one up, so don't quote me on that one. But
that's a good question. And so about cancer, for example, today when you want to search for cancer and the only thing you can do is you type in the word cancer, CANCER. And if it doesn't have that exact word, if it has the word carcinoma, or if it has the word Gleason score, a Gleason score is an indication of the level of how serious your cancer is.
okay.
So if I type in Gleason score or cancer or carcinoma, I have to type in that exact word in order to get that result in the PDF. Right. If I misspell it, or if it's misspelled in the record, if the word Gleason is misspelled, it won't pick it up. So what our algorithm is able to do is beyond the OCR that it's able to correct for that error, it's also able to find things in context. So for example, if I type in the word cancer, it'll give me the word breast, it'll give me the word carcinoma, it'll give me the word Gleason, it'll give me the word cyst, it'll give me the word tumor. Everything that has to do with cancer will be picked up by the algorithm because our algorithm has been trained on a medical data set. Gotcha. And so it knows everything relevant. So you can take a 15,000 page record that has some instances of the word cancer or something similar. And by typing in that search term, it'll give you everything that you need to find within the record, everything that has to do with cancer.
Yeah, in for example, one case that we ran recently, it was actually the heart attack case that I was mentioning. And there was the doctor just did not realize there was a likelihood of heart attack. And the word heart attack was not even ever there. And that's what you were looking for.
Right.
And it's interesting because we ran heart attack and we saw the first phrase that came to the top was the most important one in the whole case that would take lawyers hours to review. And that phrase was, there is palpitations, shortness of SOB, an acronym. That means shortness of breath and high blood cholesterol. So those things are not heart attack, but in combination, they show that there's a high likelihood of heart attack. And then you can see the next one. It was the patient was a smoker, which also increases the likelihood. So those things that might take a long time for you to understand, they just come to the top and you quickly, even if you don't have the word heart or attack.
And when they come to the top, do you mean, okay, so those documents come to the top? If I've got a PDF that's 500 pages. Does that separate out? Okay, these are the three pages that give me all those palpitations, soreness in the left arm and things like that. Would those, or is it like when I do a control find, it identifies which pages it's on and I can go and scroll to that page?
So it's more like the first version of what you said. So let's say it identifies the fragment where the relevant search term is. And when you click on it, it can actually show you the PDF. And then there's a little window that will pop up and it'll show you the PDF where that's on so you can see it in context. So if you type in cancer, the word carcinoma comes up. You click on that fragment with carcinoma and then you see everything around that page. And then the beauty of the algorithm is that the next step with that is that you can actually take this text and put it into an editable Word document, and then you can paste it into a Word document, and then you can just type, and you can edit that information so you can create it into a report or into a narrative summary, or if you can create a legal memo. So that way, instead of having to recreate the whole medical record and retype everything, you can literally just pull the fragment and then edit it.
And when we show the fragments, you can just click on accept or not accept. So if you accept it, it goes automatically to your document and it gets added. And the other thing that we do is that there's several dates on a medical record, and each page might have 7 different dates. So we have a proprietary algorithm that identifies the right date. So if you're looking for a case and you're just interested in, let's say, a 1-year gap, you can put this 1-year gap and we find the most relevant information, and the ones that are not actually within that time frame, you don't have to review if you don't want to. So it saves you time that way too.
Excellent. So Ivan, I think it's go to market time, right? What questions take us that direction?
So right now you have an MVP, you said?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And so where are we at? Just kind of talk it through in terms of what your plan is over the next, say, 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, so we have right now I would say for the 12 months is starting from the end goal. Or even before then, we plan to have the software as a service model. We don't have it as a software as a service. So for the last months, we've been really focusing a lot on the back end, meaning all the processing, all the deep learning, natural language processing algorithms. So we're very comfortable with them right now. And in the last maybe 2 weeks, we really started to focus now on the front end. So we're doing all the research, talking to UX researchers, UI designers, and talking to some of the potential users to see how they want to see the product. So that's what we're going to keep building for the next, let's say, months. So the way we offer right now and the way we're talking to our potential clients is as a service model in which we use the software ourselves, because we don't want to make the clients use Python and have to code themselves to get the results. So Serge is doing that right now. And basically the way we're offering is that we get your case, in average, for example, for in-house team at an insurance company costs about $11,000 to review these cases based on how much they have to work on it, how much you pay them. So the way we're offering is like a price reduction on how much they have to pay. We get the case, we write the report, we give it back. But the long term is...
You're doing it as like using your software, but being a consultant, essentially, in this.
That we're consulting them in the sense of we're taking the work, doing it for them at a lower cost.
Right.
And we're using that information and we're iterating over that way that should work in order to make the front end customized exactly to the way that our potential clients will want it, whether it's an insurance carrier or a law firm. At this point, we haven't finished the front end because we want to make sure that it has all the features that would be used by the client. So that consulting model, we're trying to find the right client in order to work out, to test it out with them so that we can make the front end work well.
Excellent.
So you're still searching for an ideal client, or you already have one?
So right now we have a few clients that we're talking to them. And we've started talking to a few different people, defense firms in the beginning, but realized that maybe other people are also interested and they might be interested in adopting technology sometimes even faster. So we started talking to in-house teams at insurance companies, and those conversations are ongoing. We're talking to insurance companies, their innovation teams, and we very recently started talking to some plaintiff law firms. So the conversations are ongoing right now.
Hey, Nick, can you think of anybody? I mean, you don't have to say here, but...
Yeah, I've actually sent out their information. They sent me a PDF to at least one. I invited some folks from the Legal Minds group, Mitch's group, over to watch tonight. I'll post the video. When we upload, I'll post it over there. And, so next Tuesday. And
I think your network is a lot deeper in that.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, it's funny, you guys say it on your website, that medical experts would do this. So not only does the attorney have to get all this information and do the discovery, but then they have to hire an expert witness who's usually a medical doctor to that. Mm-hmm. Expert witness is what I do day in and day out as I market expert witnesses. Then they got to get a medical doctor to review these records, which means this doctor's got to go through all the same stuff that the attorney went through. And hopefully the attorney kind of whittled down some of what needs to be reviewed, but usually there's some banker's boxes or some really large digital files that then need to be gone through again. So I'm thinking, and which is incredibly expensive when you hire an expert at $500 or $750 an hour to go through these things. So I'm thinking that, you know, maybe the documents that you guys pull together, probably the expert's going to have to review the records in full, but maybe they can also use this type of software as a service to refine it. And this is anti what my members want. Obviously, they don't want to cut down their billable hours, but truth of the matter is, if the attorney asks them to use this type of a service.
On that point, first of all, Nick, thank you so much for reaching out to your network on our behalf, and it really means a lot to us. And
thank you.
Really for that. And to answer your question about the medical experts, we actually interviewed maybe 15 or 20 physicians that are expert witnesses, either on the defense and the plaintiff side. Every single one of them said that this would be a useful tool, and that none of them have a solution currently available that would make it possible for them to review records more quickly. Now, I do want to kind of give a caveat, which is that if you're a medical expert, a lot of the time you do need to review every single page to make sure that you're careful and you're not missing anything. So I don't want to say that our software is going to just make that problem go away. They still have to go through the records, but what we're doing is we're shortening the amount of time and making it a lot easier for them to figure out whether or not this case has something to look at.
Yeah, and what they said is that it would help them expedite the overall big picture of the project and just know what they're looking for. So the other pages you can just like look quicker.
Right, and I agree with you, Serge. I would never say don't look at all the records for any of my customers. I would never recommend that. But if it helps them to whittle it down to those that are most identifiable, to speed up their process, then the most relevant records that they need to look at, and then they could expand out from there, right? But let's look at the meat and potatoes of the injury or the medical error at first, and then go from there.
Yes, and then also the attorney who's using the software can use the software to determine if there's anything relevant in some of the records. So a lot of the time, instead of sending 10,000 pages and being charged so much money, you can whittle it down to just, you know what, these 20 of these records are not even relevant at all. I won't even bother sending them over. I'll just send over the records that have hits in our search.
Right.
And then that will save money for everybody.
It saves money for everybody. Yeah. And so there is a larger network of disability attorneys that I'm going to introduce this to. And I have one who I think is on vacation medical malpractice that I'd like him to look at this, review it, and maybe even demo it. Personal injury, I think there is a possibility here for personal injury, because a lot of times personal injury have to review the medical records.
Yeah, and just on the disability law point, I was actually a disability plaintiff's lawyer for 2 years before I was a medical malpractice lawyer. And we recently, spoke to some disability lawyers and found that it's something that they can also use, because disability lawyers in ERISA disability law receive huge claim files from insurance companies, and they often have medical records and treatment notes, and they have no way to segregate all that information. So what our algorithm can do is it can help identify the most relevant information in the claim files and in the medical records. So the use case we haven't explored it as much because we're hyper-focused on medical malpractice, but we have looked at disability and also workers' compensation and life insurance as other potential use cases for our
on the disability end. Have you looked at the Social Security disability end? I'm imagining they're also heavy on the paperwork.
Yeah, so the Social Security disability, we haven't looked at that one specifically. We looked at private disability, which is ERISA.
Right.
Social Security Administration it's a very, to say the least. And they also have an enormous amount of records that they review. But the thing is that it's a government-sponsored organization, and the government is very hesitant to adopt software.
Right.
So there's lawyers that specialize in Social Security disability law, and maybe they might have some interest.
They might have some interest. Okay.
As a possible use case, yeah.
Yeah, the government is very hesitant to adopt new software, but when they do, that contract can be like gold.
Yeah, that's the only client you need. Yeah.
That's the only client you need.
Yes.
Ivan, any more on the finance side? I know you're looking to ask questions there.
Yeah, I guess we didn't really ask much on the finance side as far as the finance side goes. So you guys are bootstrapping this so far? Up to this point?
Yeah, so far we have been. We recently, maybe about a month ago, we received an investment offer. But we realized that, right now, the valuation that we got was not the one that we thought, was the one that we wanted. So we decided just to keep bootstrapping for a little longer.
Yeah, so we didn't take the offer because they wanted too much equity.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you can, I always kind of tell people, if you can write it out to where you have something where you have some clients, paying clients, or even if you could get some folks interested enough to pre-purchase at a discounted rate for being the first clients, then you could probably have enough runway to continue on and increase your valuation.
And it sounds like you guys have already you are turning some revenue through the consulting side.
Not yet. So we're working on that. We don't have it as of yet, but we're in negotiations. But we expect to have it hopefully within the next 2 months or so.
Excellent. And then what would you guys, Ivan, I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there. I thought there was some revenue already. Did you have Did you have a follow-up, Ivan, on the revenue stuff?
I mean, so right now you guys are just looking for your clients, and what I wanted to get to in that one was essentially if you can get some of these clients to pre-order whatever your pricing model is going to be with your SaaS system, then that'd probably be the best way to go. Is that what you guys are thinking about doing, or?
Yeah, we're talking especially we're talking to a lot of the in-house lawyers about exactly that. Like, if the first 3 clients are going to get, a good discount for the software as a service. What we noticed that for the in-house lawyers, the sales cycle is about 18 months. It takes some time for them to actually adopt it.
And that's why.
Slow? Sorry?
It is that slow.
Yeah. And that's why we realized that, we have to expand the horizons a little bit more and go into different possible clients.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. Yeah, and when you say in-house, are you targeting such your nationwide insurance or big healthcare health insurance?
Yeah, so for example, medical malpractice groups at insurance companies, they do a lot of the work in-house, and then they outsource a lot of the work to defense firms. And these days, they're trying to cut the costs for the defense firms. And what we're doing is we're making them do the work more efficiently in-house, so they don't have to outsource as much. So people like claim examiners and people who review medical records in-house are excellent clients potentially.
Right. Yeah.
So what are some insurance companies that are, I guess, what are some of the biggest ones?
There's a lot of big ones. I'm sorry?
Who would be the best targets for you guys?
There's a couple of big insurance companies like Milmic, for example. There's one called FOJP. There's one Doctors Company.
Berkshire Hathaway. There's one Beacon. There's a few different companies that, and it's interesting. The market is like about 10 companies own 45% of the market, which is not too concentrated, but it's somewhat concentrated. But then the next 55% of the market is very fragmented, as you can imagine. So we realized that talking to those smaller companies, things are moving a little bit faster. And also talking to some of the plaintiff law firms.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, like the sales cycle, especially for some of the larger insurance companies, can sometimes take a while because there's a lot of approval that needs to happen when it's a larger institution. So yeah, we're focusing on some of the smaller ones as well.
So if anybody listening or watching later on knows some folks in those companies, and would be nice.
Yeah, or Morgan and Morgan. If Morgan and Morgan's watching, they're a massive plaintiffs firm nationwide. Those types would be great.
Yeah, a whole day-to-day is just to make their work more efficient. So yeah,
that's great. So we're about 40 minutes in here, guys. We're about to wrap it up. Any last thoughts? Anything that we didn't cover that you feel like you'd want people to know?
Yeah, so we had this, I think going back to what we first started talking about, Our idea is first help optimize the workflow of medical malpractice attorneys, and then possibly expand to workers' compensation, life insurance. But the interesting thing, I think the beauty of the go-to-market strategy and what we have is that once you train the algorithms to detect medical errors, medical malpractice on historical data, this can be really used for different applications. And one of them brings back to my background, which is in healthcare, is that once you have an algorithm that detects medical errors or malpractice on historical data, you can use the same algorithm to detect that error actually before it happens. Once the doctor tells you, just go home, it's just a headache, you see that actually there's something there that might not be because you have family history of brain cancer and you can have headaches several times. So that's kind of, we have right now.
They can be diagnosed much sooner based on
exactly, and also prevent the errors from happening. So you don't even have to ideally not even go through the whole problem. And as we mentioned in the beginning, it's estimated that about 250,000 people to 440,000 people die every year in the U.S. from medical mistakes, which is equivalent of 48 planes crashing every week, which is crazy. It's a level of error that we don't accept in any industry.
Right.
So if we could in the future help with that and decrease that we see it as a noble goal that we would love to get into.
Yeah, I'm seeing there's a potential there for a customer-facing solution as well, and maybe in the long term.
Yeah, like a clinical side,
Right.
where it's like helping the clinicians, like the doctors, for example. When we have a trained data set that identifies medical errors, because we're using a database with records from malpractice cases, with time we'll be able to understand those errors and the patterns, and then that could be used by clinicians to prevent medical errors before they happen, or it can kind of enhance their decisions because they'll know that, hey, be careful in this situation, there's room for error. So our real goal long term is to move into that, and once we have enough data we could do that. And one of the interesting things that we're exploring is a question answering model, which you can kind of like query a medical record even with your voice, for example, and you can say something like, does this patient have diabetes? And it'll query all the medical records and it'll say, this patient has diabetes or doesn't have diabetes. And that's something that we're thinking as a long-term strategy.
And that's something that our co-founder...
Alexa meets chatbot.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly right.
And that's something our co-founder has a lot of experience in, and he was working at Google with question answering models for several years. So that was a logical decision for us, especially because right now we're doing a smart search, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can take that smart search the same way they say, Google, what's the capital of whatever country? And it just tells you exactly what it is. You don't have to read the whole article. We were talking to this plaintiff attorney today. They say, if I just want to know, has this patient had any pains in the left arm before? You just say yes or no, and you show the medical record that actually backs that up. So, that would be amazing. That would save me so many hours. So that's one of the things that we're building towards, and hopefully we can implement and launch that specific product next year.
In your research of developing this, have you found other companies that are doing similar machine learning, algorithms, but not in other industries that you benchmark
so there's
off
a few
of?
companies. Sorry?
That you can benchmark off of.
Yeah, there's a few companies in eDiscovery using machine learning. The thing is that the difference is that often they just try to analyze by word, creating what we call word embedding, in which you see the proximity of different words. And what we're trying to do is basically the next level, which is something that is being rolled out. It's like the most current R&D in natural language processing and deep learning, which is understanding the whole paragraph and even the whole page as a whole document to understand the context.
More contextualized.
It's a little bit more, it's actually much more complex, and you need much more processing power because, let's say if you're prescribing, you want to know about an HIV result, and you have at the beginning of the sentence, you have an HIV test was prescribed, and just in the end of the paragraph, you have the test came out negative. You have to really understand what you're referring to, and it's not just simple to understand, which test are you referring to? What is the noun of the phrase? What is the subject of the phrase? What is the verb of the phrase? And you have to create really an object-oriented understanding of what that phrase is talking about. And then that's something we're building that, as far as we know, the eDiscovery firms are not doing right now.
And there are some other industries and legal as well that are using AI, machine learning, for example, in contract law and mergers and acquisitions. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of extraction of contract data in order to train algorithms to detect patterns and to find relevant words. So there's definitely a lot of exploration in that space. And there's definitely a lot of exploration in medical records. But for specifically medical malpractice, there's no one else that's focusing on that area.
That's nice. Great. That's a good place to be. All right, guys.
Model.
So where do people find you online?
Yeah, so you can find us on our website is www.intrellit with 2Ls.com. We have also a Twitter account at Intrellit, again, 2Ls. And our emails, we can reach out as info@intrellit.com.
Excellent. And they do have a Twitter account at Intrellit, and they're about to get really busy on it because I noticed that's fairly new, it looks like.
Yeah. In fact, we only really fully launched in September, so we're relatively
new. Hey, but you guys reached out. That's what we're looking for these days. Under 12 months with an MVP. That's the goal.
Yeah. And yeah, I think the first post that I have on Twitter account, if I'm not mistaken, was a retweet from you on this podcast. So, yeah.
Nice. I like it. So when you guys are crushing it, save that for posterity for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you again for this opportunity. It's really interesting, excellent questions, and really got us to think about things. So I really enjoyed it, and thank you again for offering to connect us with some of your contacts.
And just keep in touch because sometimes things will slip through the cracks with me, but I'm happy to push where I can. So just
guys, as something comes up where you're hitting your head on something, if you want us to reach out to our networks to potentially find someone, just go ahead and do that on Twitter. And if you're on LinkedIn, my network on LinkedIn is a little bit more robust than professional services.
Yeah, we're on LinkedIn as well, Intrellit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, it's great having you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, great having you guys. So our guests tonight.
And hold up, before we finish, I have to show off a little bit.
Of course you do.
Очень приятно было с вами познакомиться.
Очень приятно с тобой тоже было.
All right, obrigado.
Obrigado.
I know. What's the one I know, Ivan? Privyet? Is that it? Is that the one I know?
Привет, до свидания.
You can use privyet for hello and see you later.
Yeah. Nazarovia is the other one.
He learned that.
Nice. So, everybody, thank you for watching. The replay will be available, guys, next Tuesday. I'll have it up on the website. We'll do links through to you. And our guests tonight are, and I didn't say this the first time through, Dr. Victor Bornstein and Serge Zenin. And they are the founders of Intrellit. And you can find them at Intrellit.com and at Intrellit. That's INTRELLIT.com and at Intrellit on Twitter. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. Don't disappear after the recording stops. We wanted to chat with you for a few minutes. But thanks again. I'm Nick Rishwain. This is episode 39 of Legal Tech Live.
Nice. 39.
And who's my co-host?
Yeah, am I still your co-host? Ivan Reiklin.
Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.